I want to start things off with Rico Dowdle. I don't understand why this guy is going so late in drafts. What have we seen from Ezekiel Elliott that has said to us, hey, this guy's going to be good in fantasy football this year? He looked slow last year. He looked like he was struggling. We saw Tony Pollard go past him. Rico Dowdle is the new Tony Pollard in this offense. He's going to be the number one in Dallas, and you can get him real cheap late in drafts. Over the course of the season, he's going to turn into the number one in this offense. And we know that the Cowboys' rushing attack can be really good. You can get him essentially free in drafts. He's going in the double-digit rounds. Why aren't we drafting Rico Dowdle earlier?
Well, I think here's kind of the thought process for when you have a 1B back. And listen, we can debate whether that's going to be Zeke or Rico Dowdle. I think the problem with the current Cowboys situation is Mike McCarthy's on the hot seat. And I think when you're thinking about Dak Prescott being in a contract year and a lot of things riding on this season, they're going to want to go with vets, the guys that they trust. And I think that's going to be Zeke, whether we like it or not. And when I look at 1B backs, I like them to be, if they're going to be a 1B back, I want them to be the passing game back. And that's not going to be the case. Zeke will be the pass pro guy. He will be the passing game back. And listen, last year with the Patriots, the passing game, he played pretty well for the Pats. I know he doesn't run efficiently anymore, and I do think Rico Dowdle will be, still involved, but I think they'll probably be close to a 50-50 split on the ground with favoring the passing game work with Zeke Elliott. And if you just look at the games last year when Rico Dowdle had double-digit touches, he averaged about 10.8 PPR points per game, and I think that's a realistic outlook for him this season. But that's like RB3 numbers, and I think – if a late round flyer, that's fine. He's probably a guy you could throw in your flex here and there, especially on a really good offense. But league winner, I think without a Zeke injury, I don't see a league winning upside for him per se.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you that early on in the season, we're probably going to see a lot of Zeke until they learn to trust Dowdle. But I think there's still upside there. I think there's still a situation where we can imagine Dowdle taking over from Zeke if Zeke looks like he's kind of washed. And of course, as you said, in a situation where if Zeke gets injured, all of a sudden Dowdle does become that league winner, does get a heavy snap share. Because realistically, they're not giving the ball to a lot of Juice Vaughn or Royce Freeman. It's going to be Dowdle getting a whole lot of touches if Zeke's not there. So there's plenty of upside, and you're looking for upside with late round running backs. So I do really like the possibility of Rico Dowdle becoming that guy in this offense. Okay, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Jerome Ford, and I want to tell you I appreciate the fact that you told me when the homework assignment, you're like, hey, 11th round or later. And so when I went into our ADP tool, by the way, if you haven't been to razzball.com and you hit that Razzball ADP tool, we have a bunch of different sites, Best Ball 10s, Underdog, Yahoo, ESPN, all put into one place for you. So go check it out on razzball.com. The ADP tool is fantastic. Jerome Ford is being drafted in the 11th round. And so it's like it would be a crime for me not to talk about that fact that this kid is probably going to be a legit starter, especially early on in the season. I think if you look at Nick Chubb's injury, and I know he's been showing up to practice and there's been videos of him at practice, but this guy is nowhere near ready to actually participate in games. And I think it's going to be more of like a feel-good story, him just getting back to the field. Pro Football Doc at the time of his injury flat out said this could be career-ending type injury. So this idea that Nick Chubb this season is going to come back and really produce, at least early on, is not going to be the case. So you're probably looking at Jerome Ford in a really, I wouldn't say a workhorse role, but he's going to be in a very good role in this Browns offense. And last season, he averaged over 12 PPR points per game. That's like RB2 numbers. And so I think that's what the kind of viewpoint for him this year. Now, what's really changed is Kareem Hunt is gone. And listen, for what it's worth, Kareem Hunt was a part of this Browns organization for a long time. And so the coaching staff trusted him. They replaced him with guys like Deontay Foreman and Nyheim Hines. And listen, Hines is coming off a bunch of his own injuries, hasn't played well in a long time. Deontay Foreman is a really good runner, but he's not going to be involved in the passing game. So I think if you look at last season, really where Ford lost the work was in the red zone. Kareem Hunt got most of the red zone work, carries inside the 5, and Jerome Ford did not get those opportunities. If he's able to get more of that work being as the incumbent now, if you forget about Kareem Hunt being there for a long time, I know Deontay Foreman could play that role too. But what my thought process is, his arrow can go up higher if he's able to earn bigger red zone work this season. He's getting the passing game work. He is the 1A on the ground, which he will be this season. So I think his floor Even with Deshaun Watson coming back and Joe Flacco, he played better with Watson last year, believe it or not. So I think at this point, his ADP doesn't make any sense. And I have him probably like 40 to 50 spots higher in my top 150 just because of that. So I'm looking to target him as an RB2. What's your thoughts, Ben?
I totally agree. He's probably my favorite of these 5 guys that we're talking about, just because the upside is so high. When you're in the late rounds, there's no point going for guys who are safe. There's no point in taking guys who are going to give you consistent average production. You want guys that can win your league, and Jerome Ford can win you your league. We know that this Browns rushing offense can be really effective. We know that if Nick Chubb is injured, or ultimately if Nick Chubb comes back and just doesn't look like the runner he was previously, all of a sudden Jerome Ford becomes that guy in this offense. Don Foreman is definitely going to be involved in some way if Chubb's out, but I feel like he's just going to do that heavy lifting that isn't worth that many fantasy points anyway. I do think you struck on something valuable. Does he get the red zone work? And I don't know what the answer is there, but even if he doesn't, if he's getting most of the every down work and he's getting the passing down work, that's going to have enough value to make him a top 20 running back. And that's excellent for anyone you've drafted the last few rounds. That's someone you can start every week. We saw that happen last season. If you picked up Jerome Ford, you were starting him most weeks and you were really happy about it. You can now get him really cheap in this year's draft, knowing that that's still possible this year as well.
The other thing I really like about Jerome Ford is that he had a really strong PFF blocking grade, so he's been trusted in pass pro. And listen, even if Nick Chubb comes back, that's never been Nick Chubb's role. He's never been the passing game back. So Ford was the outlook last year for Ford was he was going to take over as the Kareem Hunt and be the 1B back and basically take the passing game work. And he actually got a decent amount of targets last year. He's going to have that role even in the second half if Nick Chubb returns. And by the way, even if, like you just brought up, Nick Chubb, there's no shot Nick Chubb is going to be Nick Chubb, at least this season. So you're going to get a guy probably weeks 1 through 8 who's going to be the main running back. And in the second half, at worst, he'll be in a 50-50 split, getting the passing game work, which I love. So that's why I love Ford. I have him way ahead of ADP, and I'll continue to draft him as much as I can.